America's iconic Hooters restaurant chain is famous for, well, let's say a couple of things. One of those things is succulent, spicy breaded chicken wings. But for an all-too-brief spell in the mid-noughties, a much grander sort of wing elevated Hooters above its bawdy fast food roots and led to perhaps the most bizarre branding experiment in corporate history. So strap yourself in and pay close attention to your flight attendant as we whisk you away on a voyage of discovery and learn all about the rise and fall of Hooters Air. You probably won't be shocked to discover Hooters' original, strikingly old-school restaurant business model was first cooked up as a drunken April Fool's gag. 6 businessmen from Iowa jokingly incorporated their saucy brainchild on April 1, 1983. In October of that same year, they opened the first Hooters location on the site of a failed Florida nightclub. Hot fried food and beer served by smiling busty ladies was the order of the day. Despite early dire predictions that the concept would crash and burn, 4 decades and limitless pitchers of cold beer later, the Hooters brand now boasts more than 420 locations in 30 countries all around the world. Talk about impressive figures. However, our story starts just after the turn of the millennium. Following a string of canny corporate buyouts and a bullish expansion policy under the wise stewardship of South Carolina tycoon Robert H. Brooks, Hooters found itself flush with cash. And what else should a thriving restaurant firm do with all that spare cash other than purchase an airline? Well, that's what Hooters did. At the tail end of 2002, Hooters bought regional charter carrier Pace Airlines. Hooters immediately set about repainting its small fleet of Boeing aircraft in the gaudy orange and white livery of its restaurants, complete with glaring Hootie the Owl mascot. Believe it or not, for a time the newly rebranded Hooters Air business model was pretty sound. Robert H. Brooks had long nurtured a dream that his beloved Myrtle Beach might emerge as a nationwide mecca for golf tourism. And thanks to a steady but solid increase in consumer confidence post 9/11, Brooks was indeed able to lure as many as 5,000 extra punters a week to his grateful hometown hub. The Hooters Air operation had legs. Also, its fares were low. Initially, a one-way flight would set you back as little as $99, rising to a modest flat fare of $129 to all 15 destinations, that is. This was a bargain when you consider Hooters airplanes were deliberately fitted with fewer seats in order to provide an enticing 34 inches of legroom to all. Far better than the competition at that time anyway. Hooters being Hooters, the cabins were also staffed by 2 scantily clad waitresses plucked from their restaurant roles and furnished with one mission and one mission only: to entertain. In order to satisfy Federal Aviation Authority regulations, the Hooters girls weren't allowed to so much as push the drinks trolley, let alone fly the plane or operate the cabin doors. But their flirty demeanor, saucy trivia games, and crowd-pleasing songs lent a zesty and carefree dimension to an otherwise humdrum budget vacation experience. The Hooters Air network quickly expanded to exotic destinations such as Las Vegas and Nassau in the Bahamas. More prosaic cities like Columbus, Ohio, Fort Myers, Florida, and Gary, Indiana also joined the fun. New aircraft were swiftly repainted and brought on board to cope with booming demand, all within a few short months of the airline's maiden flight. And in a happy validation of Brooks's grand vision, Myrtle Beach did indeed enjoy an unprecedented boom in tourism, for which local businesses sing his praises to this day. Sadly, what goes up must come down. In December 2005, the company published a shock announcement declaring its route to Rockford, Pennsylvania would be suspended following news that the local authorities were subsidizing rival carrier United to the tune of $2.5 million in public funds. Indeed. This, alas, was the beginning of the end, and by the springtime of 2006, the Hooters Air dream had all but ceased entirely. So what actually went down? The most crucial factor, dull as it sounds, was an eye-watering rise in jet fuel costs. You see, when Hooters Air and its glamorous crew first took to the air in 2003, jet fuel cost around 67 cents a gallon. Come August 2005, that same amount of fuel would set the airline back a whopping $2.50 a gallon. As Hooters Air based their entire business model on being a low-fare carrier, margins quickly evaporated. Had they packed in more seats, arguably this economic turbulence could have been weathered, although customers had by then got used to all the extra legroom as they boozily savoured the cabin views. Another likely factor in the decline of Hooters Air was that the novelty of the concept had simply worn off. Tight tops and short shorts aside, Hooters' famous chicken wings weren't even available on flights. because, reasonably enough, you might say, deep fat fries are frowned upon by stuffy airline regulators. Soft pretzels, fruit and pigs in blankets simply didn't cut the mustard, and plenty of customers weren't afraid to say so. Hurricanes Rita and Katrina also took their toll on the domestic aviation market, as did the uncomfortable truth that Hooters beer and wings demographic aren't exactly frequent flyers. And that is to say nothing of the fact that fully half the marketplace, women, are quite rightly skeptical of a business model that uses jiggling breasts and flirty smiles as an incentive to air travel. Robert H. Brooks himself put it most succinctly in a 2006 interview shortly after wrapping up the ill-starred Hooters Air business. "The flying industry is in a terrible mess," he began. "I've got a fair amount of money, but not enough to fix this animal. The best thing we can do is put it to bed, at least until the industry changes." According to Brooks, affectionately known as the worldwide wing commander by loyal employees, this strange misadventure cost Hooters some $40 million. Brooks sadly passed away later that same year, aged 69. Still, Hooters Air did plenty to put Myrtle Beach on the tourist map and encouraged many other small regional airports to think big in terms of expansion. And even if the airline had survived later than 2006, it's hard to imagine that particular business model thriving in the Me Too era. Most likely, history will remember Hooters Air as a bold but silly experiment that, with some poetic justice, simply went bust.